The show is starting.
Bacon and eggs, roll do-de-do-de, bo do-de-do-de, sunny side up, do-de-do-de, rip tippy-tippy, coffee in cup.
Waiter! Waiter!
Yes, sir.
Alphabet soup, and make it snappy.
Coming right up, sir.
I'll have a combination sandwich. Ham, cheese, liverwurst, lettuce and tomato, salami, sauerkraut, peanut butter, mustard, pickle, relish, and mayonnaise on whole wheat toast.
Yes, sir.
And hold the onions.
Yes, sir.
Step on it.
Yes, sir.
And now, I'll have a nice, thick, tender, juicy T-bone steak and a poached egg on toast and demitasse.
I'm sorry, we have no demitasse, sir.
Okay, make it a small cup coffee.
Yes, sir. Let's see now, Q-R, yes, T, oh, here it is. Dum-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum. In with the sugar. That's all, folks.
The winter evening settles down with smell of steaks in passageways. 6 o'clock. The burnt-out ends of smoky days. And now a gusty shower wraps the drying scraps of withered leaves about your feet, and newspapers from vacant lots. The showers beat on broken blinds and chimney pots, while at the corner of the street a lonely cab horse steams and stamps, and then the lighting of the lamps. The morning comes to consciousness with the first faint stale smell of beer from the sawdust-sprinkled streets, with all their busy feet that press to early coffee stands. With the other masquerades that time resumes, one thinks of all the hands that are raising dingy shades in 1,000 furnished rooms. You tossed the blankets from the bed. You lay upon your back and waited. You dozed and watched the night revealing the 1,000 sordid images of which your soul was constituted. They flickered against the ceiling. And when all the world came back, and the day crept in through the shutters, and you heard the sparrows in the gutters, you had such a vision of the street as the street hardly understands. Sitting along the bed's edge where you curled the papers in your hair, or clasped the yellowed soles of feet in the palms of both soiled hands. His soul stretched tight across the skies that stand behind the city block, or trampled by insistent feet at 4 and 5 and 6 o'clock, and short, square fingers stuffing pipes and evening newspapers, and eyes assured of certain certainties, the conscience of a blackened street, impatient to assume the world. I am moved by fancies that are curled about these images and cling, the notion of some infinitely gentle, infinitely suffering thing. Wipe your hand across your mouth and laugh. The worlds revolve like ancient women gathering fuel in vacant lots. T.S. Eliot.
Here before you is an opportunity to plumb the depths of the mysteries that confound and intrigue us. A chance to ask the big questions. Dr. Hal is not interested in questions of trivial matters or of facts that are easily gathered elsewhere. Dr. Hal seeks the questions that transcend fact. He stands before you ready to take questions that used to be brought to wise and aged sages on distant mountaintops. These questions can now be asked from the comfort of your living room. No Sherpas required. Simply direct your favorite web browser to co-fi.com/AskDrHal. You will be taken to a website where all you need do is submit your question in the provided message block and the value that you wish to place upon it, and Dr. Hal will answer your question in a way that only Dr. Hal can. Next, you will be asked for your email address. Don't worry, we never sell, share, or solicit. PayPal takes care of the rest and moves your valuable love offering from your hand to Dr. Hal. Simply enter your information and you're done. Wisdom will flow directly from Hal's lips to your ears. Links for this can also be found on the Ask Dr. Hal website at gonzotronics.net/ADH for Ask Dr. Hal. Do not let this opportunity to consult a modern-day oracle, a seer for seers, a man steeped in the arts, sciences, and esoteric studies pass you by. Now, through the very internet itself, comes to you the one and only Dr. Hal Robins, now making house calls. Here we are, Dr. Hal. Greetings.
Yes, ready to do another one of these shows.
Here we are. We're going to be going on hiatus for 2 months. We'll be back August the 14th after this show. Festival season is coming, and Dr. Hal and I both have travel schedules and all kinds of things going on. So after the show, we will see you back right here, August the 14th, same time, same day.
Right. The second Sunday of the month of August. But before then, the interval includes travel plans that we both have.
Back on the road again.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since I've been on the road, but it's also, I guess I shouldn't fail to mention that today is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, Dr. Hal.
Yes, we wish Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who may be watching, and all those who have mothers.
Precisely.
Who watched over them.
Well, Dr. Hal, I have a couple of questions for you, and let me go ahead over here and take a look at our queue. Before we get started, I do want to remind the audience that this is the Ask Dr. Hal show, and without you, we don't have the Ask. So if you can get your questions into us, we'll take them any way you want to give them to us. If you want to put them into chat, you can put them in there with a pledge, and we trust you to get that offering off to Dr. Hal. Or you can enter them into the Ko-fi site as we explained in the How to Hal segment. So, but if you have any questions, the ever-present stage ghost, St. Joyce, is standing by in the chat room to answer any questions that you may have. So, moving smartly forward, Dr. Hal, I have a first question here, and this is simply from a Ko-fi supporter, and it is an offering of $15, and it says, "When I have time to do things that I enjoy, instead I often spend much of that time not doing anything at all. I am beginning to suspect that I am in the grip of a form of false slack. What advice can you offer?"
Well, judging from what you tell me, I feel you are employing your slack, but you're employing it as a buffer. After all, if you are compelled to do the thing you enjoy during the slack time, you are still compelled, and that is the antithesis of slack. Those periods in which we don't do much actually turn out to be essential because they provide the launching pad or springboard for what we actually do accomplish. And inactivity breeds activity, as opposites tend to do. But one thing that will diminish your slack, and this is sad, is any sensation of guilt associated with your own methods. You simply need to try your methods, and if they are not quite what you want, to alter them, but it is not necessary to feel guilt, at least about that. $15 is pretty good, huh? So here's a small poem by Lewis Carroll. Fury said to a mouse that he met in the house, "Let us both go to law. I will prosecute you. Come, I'll have no denial. We must have a trial, for truly this morning we've nothing to do." Said the mouse to the cur, "Such a trial, dear sir, with no jury or judge, would be wasting our breath." "I'll be judge, I'll be jury," said cunning old Fury. "I'll try the whole cause and condemn you to death." Thanks for the question.
I haven't hit the wrong button in a long time. Sorry about that,
Well,
Dr.
I am
Hal.
anxious to see your inspection of the beehive when we get there, but let's go on with another question.
Mark that down. That's been my first fumble finger in like 3 months. Anyway.
Call it a preview of a coming attraction on this very show.
Yes. I have a question here from a person over in the UK by the name of Chancellor Griffin, a very good friend of ours in the shows. And the question is, "Dear Dr. Hal, keeper of church secrets, I have recently fallen amongst heathens and followers or false prophets. What should I do to these worshippers of the flying spaghetti monster? Is there any profit in selling them to the Church of Jehovah One, or does Bob require me to smite them with the stark fist of removal? Yours sincerely, Vice Chancellor Griffin of the Bob Corps Diaspora."
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Griffin. Well, over here we suspect that the flying spaghetti monster is a trope against idolatry, the idolatry which occurs in every religion, in making the symbol of your faith a god, rather the opposite of making the god of your faith a symbol. But the flying spaghetti monster is chosen because of its absurdity and because of the related trope of spaghetti sticking to the wall if it is done. If it's going to get to the wall, it may fly to get there, with an able assist by the experimenter who gives it a fling. Beyond that, the spaghetti monster itself, which in some illustrations I have seen comprises meatballs as well as individual strands of spaghetti, looks more like a Lovecraftian demonic being, a tentacular mass with radiant arms and a rugated central meatball portion, something which would give much unease if it were not in the form of delicious spaghetti and meatballs. But perhaps here comes the numinous dread in that religions need, for one must be deiphobos, that is to say, God-fearing. In order for your God to have any strength, you have to be a little afraid of what it might do. Now, this is all very complicated, and people who espouse the spaghetti monster are trying to end complication or minimize it. That is why we like J.R. Bob Dobbs, whose pleasant visage indicates that all tropes and speculations are all right, as long as they end in slack. We doubt that the flying spaghetti monster can confer anything but temporary slack, while to be inculcated into the church of the subgenius is to be permanently placed where slack will come down the pipeline. And this is an important thing. So our faith, if you want to call it that, incorporates all these other gods, and you may make them a part of your celestial and divine menagerie, as long as you hew to the Dobbsian principle that slack must be first and foremost for you to be able to achieve the more pleasurable things in life.
Dr. Hal, I should mention that was a $22.22 question.
How numerologically interesting. Let us say a poem by Sir Walter Scott. We've all lost people in this recent pandemic period. This is called Coronach. He is gone on the mountain, he is lost to the forest, like a summer-dried fountain when our need was the sorest. The font reappearing from the raindrops shall borrow, but to us comes no cheering, to Duncan no morrow. The hands of the reaper take the ears that are hoary, but the voice of the weeper wails manhood in glory. The autumn winds rushing take the leaves that are searest, but our flower was in flushing when blighting was nearest. Swift foot on the corrie, sage counsel encumber, red hand in the foray. How strong is thy slumber! Like the dew on the mountain, like the foam on the river, like the bubble in the fountain, thou art gone, and forever.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Hal, I'm going to give an opportunity for our queue to fill up. I do want to remind the audience that we run this show on your questions. Without you, we don't have questions to ask the good doctor. And without those questions, the good doctor cannot espouse that wisdom that he espouses so well.
That wise guy stuff. Well, don't think your questions are too informal or flippant. Whatever they are, it is not your business to make them entertaining, but our business to make our answers entertaining and meaningful. And look at that wonderful Ask Dr. Hal cup that Pontius Pressure is holding up. Perhaps one of these might be in your future as well, as a legacy unto your issue.
And there's only one way to get those mugs, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But for now...
Right, then we talk about how to get mugged on the show.
But while we are waiting for that queue, though, to fill up, let's give an opportunity for the audience to go out there and put those questions and contributions in. But we do have a pressure point coming up, so we briefly advertised it earlier, and I'm going to bring it on right now. It is a mid-April afternoon, and the temperatures are hovering right around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It's time again to open the hive and perform a full inspection. We performed an inspection about a month ago, and it should be performed about once every month of active bee season from early spring to late fall. This is akin to doing the weeding and the watering in a garden. The checks and maintenance that we do now will hopefully yield rewards at harvest. When we last visited the hive, we inserted chemically treated strips into it to treat for a nasty little insect called the varroa mite. These little monsters are an invasive species that have been attacking bee colonies and are only one of the likely causes of bee colony collapse. We generally try to avoid chemicals around the bees, but in this particular case, we will do our part to treat them, so not only are they healthy, but we know we have helped to knock back the spread of this nasty little insect. These strips have been in the hive now for about a month and have had the opportunity to do their job. So, as part of our inspection, we're going to be removing them. The first thing we will do before we begin to remove the frames will be to blow smoke from the bellows into the hive. The best explanation for why this works is that it short-circuits the bee's ability to smell a pheromone that is released by other bees when distressed. This keeps the other bees from relaying the distress signal and keeps the hive calm as the beekeeper works it. The first frame is always the hardest to remove. The bees use a substance called propolis to glue everything in the hive together. In just a month, all of the frames that were previously removed are glued back in and require some gentle persuasion to remove. My frame grabber is a very handy tool for helping to remove frames, and I use it in combination with a small crowbar. I liken the care exercised in this operation to working with any semi-dangerous or fragile material. This is both. I have to handle each of these frames with care and wish to damage as few bees or their hard work as possible. At the same time, I don't want to do anything rough or sudden that will send a warning through the colony and make our job this afternoon more difficult. During the inspection, half of the frames are being removed and placed in an empty bee box at my feet. Each frame will be inspected. We are looking for anything abnormal and making sure there is no active infestations or disease. Another thing that we are looking for is at the strength of the colony. As you can see here, it looks to be thriving. Finally, we will be looking for queen cells. These contain new, unhatched queen bees, and we will talk more about them in a future episode. Halfway through the inspection of our first hive box, or super, we will now start sliding our frames to the empty side of the box after inspection. With the frames now inspected, we replace all of them slowly and carefully back into the hive. Every care is taken to lose as few bees as possible, but it is almost impossible not to be slightly destructive during the process. After a quick, calming smoke, we prepare a trap for another bee pest and intruder in our hives. Small hive beetles are another nuisance that we face. These tunnel into the wax and destroy comb. Since they tend to crawl into crevices to hide, the traps mimic their favorite places. The only thing is, they are now filled with cooking oil, and the beetle, when they try to hide, will drown in it. The inner lid is placed very gently and slid so that the bees are pushed, not rolled or crushed. Slow and steady movements, and you'll notice that the bees are barely perturbed. We will repeat this exact process for our lower super as well, but for now, we will save it for the next time. That was a preview of our next question.
Well, it certainly is intriguing. What question is that?
Well, this is coming from Dr. Reverend Big John. It is an $11 question, and it says, pictured on this t-shirt, let me bring that back up again. Pictured on this t-shirt is Dankosaurus, the mascot of a bar near me. It is presumably lived in the Cedar Creek area of central Texas, but beyond that, I have no knowledge of it. Please tell me more about this overlooked creature.
Well, the Dankosaurus, you say. I suppose we could keep the image up on the screen while I talk about it. It appears to be a carnivorous species among the theropoda, or carnosaurs. And it is presented in a rearing up position. Of course, it would help if I could look at it to make the description of it. It's not there now. Oh, there it is. So something is shining out behind it, and this is perhaps a halo of luminosity, because it's a special thing, a mascot on a special red field. But the creature is unusual and unknown among theropods in having such well-developed forelimbs and so many fingers. The dinosaurian condition in general is to have long hind legs and short forelegs. But it is also a common feature of the theropoda that through an evolutionary process they lose the fingers of the hand, starting at the outside, that is the fifth finger, and moving in toward the first finger. The proto-sauropods had all 5 digits. Early tyrannosaurids tended to have 3, having lost the outer 2. Then the classic Tyrannosaurus rex has 2 fingers, the first and the second. In other words, the thumb and the forefinger. But Dankosaurus has enough mobility of the phalanges to be able to flash the peace sign. This is good because we prefer peace to contention, especially having to do with a soothing and relaxing beverage. Some, the people who are in paleontology today would frown at the idea of the animal rearing up as it is shown, but I believe this is silly, and the animal would rear up, but we should not say that an extinct animal that we don't know anything about could not assume a certain position, especially if it were in its advantage to do so. And when you rear up among your saurian brethren, that gives you height, which is another symbol for domination, and that too is important. So it seems to be a tyrannosaurid that has specially developed forelimbs, but such exceptions are not phylogenetically unknown. And surely any alcoholic beverage, potation, so blessed by a saurian effigy can only be of advantage and favor to consume.
Goodness gracious. There we go. It was haunting me.
What, the creature?
The creature was haunting me, yes. I couldn't get rid of it everywhere I went. It was staring at me. I have a question here. This is a $5 question, and it is from a Ko-fi supporter. And it is, as keeper of church secrets, is there anything that the statute of limitations has expired on that you can now reveal?
Well, again, I have to say that if one is supposed to keep secrets, the way to do that is not to reveal them. But a number of things do transpire, and yesterday's closely kept secrets tend to be less important in the long run. One thing is the indeterminacy of X Day. has long been discussed, but in hushed whispers among the subgenius cognoscenti. As we are told in our sacred writings, J.R. Bob Dobbs himself wrote down the date of 1998. And then the time was also considered to be, the date was considered to be July 5th at 7 a.m. Recently, however, there are people who are flogging the idea of the real X Day in June, and we can only look with interest as we follow along this new spot for our annual festival of X Day. It could be that the saucers will arrive at that time. We're not asking to see the calculations that produce this result. In the Church of the Subgenius, we do not insist that you show your homework. And after all, it might not be as overt as all that, since it could be that the exists themselves are affecting the conclusion by an unconscious process of revelation, by dreams, or even involuntary conclusions and movements. It is by their fruits that ye shall know them. In this case, whether or not the real X Day turns out to reap the best harvest of all, the appearance of the exists, portending the salvation of the subgeniuses. Remember, in the Church of the Subgenius, we are interested in gathering in all the subgeniuses, but we are not particularly interested in gathering in those who are not subgeniuses. Only those who are subgeniuses, and those who are but may not know it, are considered our lawful congregants. Now, those statements and conclusions have been secret in that up till now no one has been truly interested in this obscure theological dimension of our belief system. But with the real X Day coming up in June, some event where you will see both myself and Pastor Pressure, if you attend it, this may be changing.
Dr. Hal, you even understand they're changing the time from 7 a.m. of all heresies
to a more comfortable time to get up and stand in the muddy landing field.
Yes, perhaps even when the grass is dry.
Yes, the early morning was always a test. Of course, that in itself tests the devotion of those who are participants, but we never wish to be so unkind as to harsh their mellow, so to speak, and to provide slack is the ultimate objective at all times.
I can second that heartily 100%, Dr. Hal.
Well, some people say it just doesn't seem like it really is X Day. That's what Reverend Baby Bear said. But time will tell.
You know, there was something I wanted to mention at the beginning of the show, so I'm going to mention it now before I forget it again. But Reverend Ramulak, our very good friend, just got engaged. So on behalf of the show, I wanted to send out congratulations to Reverend Ramulak. I hope you are...
Yes, congratulations from all of us here at the show, and may your union be blessed and slackful.
We wish you every happiness. And with that, we have another friend of the show. Our good friend Patsy MacDonald is going to share some crafts with us today. So I'm going to give the opportunity for our queue to build up. We do have questions awaiting our next segment. However, we do have plenty of room in the show for your questions. So audience, please get your questions into Dr. Hal. This is not a chance to lose money. This is a chance to gain wisdom. What is it worth to you? Surely there is
not a drill. This is the real thing.
There are questions that must be burning in your heart of hearts that you have always wanted to ask. And Dr. Hal is here tonight to answer them. So, without
And you
further
want to
ado,
avoid what the French call esprit d'escalier, or spirit of the staircase, where you lose the opportunity to say or ask something and only think of it as you are leaving. Spare yourself that psychic discomfort and ask your questions now in the time which we provide. But let's see Patsy's useful and informative segment.
without further ado, Dr. Hal.
Well, hi there. My name is Patsy MacDonald. Do you love crafting? I clearly do. That's why I'm so excited that you're joining me here today for another episode of Crafting with Patsy. All right, let's get started. Today, I thought we'd focus on making something special for the home, something that your friends and family will have to tolerate for years. The home is full of so many inanimate objects that don't have rhinestones on them yet, and that's a shame. Just look around. They're everywhere. I'd like to invite you to find one of those inanimate objects that just needs a little extra razzle-dazzle, and you're never going to believe what I found. Check this out. I know you're going to have a hard time believing that this is real, because I did. Even I did. But look at it. Someone just took this out onto the street and walked away. But don't you worry. I've got plans for you. As you can see, this is a majestic piece of sculptural integrity. I think it used to be a clock. Here's my theory. There is a beautiful snow globe right here with this little tiny bird inside. To make this snow globe work, you have to pick up this very heavy thing and you have to shake it. You have to shake it real hard. Shook the hands of time right out of this beautiful piece of artistry. So many feelings. We're going to bring it to life. We're going to make it look even more natural. I think we should get started. We're only going to need a few simple things. First, you're going to need some paints of your own personal liking. An assortment of paintbrushes. Something cute to put your paints in. Rhinestones, of course. I don't even know where to begin. We're going to just start at the beginning. It's the only place to start, really. Now, I hope you found something in your home that's going to be as fun to paint as this is, because this is a hoot. I remembered these birds being a lot smaller, but they're like life-size birds, real-time birds. I don't know if I'm ever going to recover from this. Oh, look, there you go, came right off. Paint is a lot like tears. You can just wipe it off. Just wipe it off. I didn't realize that birds had so many places on them. Yeah, take that face. Take that little bird face. So hard to get in. Open up to me. I am absolutely obsessed with these birds because I rescued them. Very loyal for that reason. I bet these birds are never going to run away. Can you feel the wind on you? It's like you're flying. There are a few things that I could say about my recent experience with these two birds, but I'm not going to do that because this isn't about me. This is about this inanimate object. I should know a thing or two about inanimate objects, seeing as I've been treated like one for most of my professional career. We're rusticating this wood here. We're making it look like it's really wood and like it's really old. Oh, look, there's some rocks under there. We'll have to make those look really rocky. That's for sure. Just taking it that one extra step. A little more realistic, a little more natural. Uh-huh. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, you said it. Attention to detail is everything. And that's also another great thing about inanimate objects. They can just keep doing stuff to them. Look at this. Will you look at this? Well, now I think it might be time to move on to some leaves. Mixing up some green paint, because we need those leaves to look fresh as the morning dew. Well, let's just put some highlights in here. There we go. You just do the edges of the leaves. This is fun. Now let's see what we're going to do about these flowers. Yep, we're going straight out of the tube now, people. One thing I do love are flowers that last forever. And these are going to last forever. Long after I'm gone. I keep falling more and more in love with it as time goes on. It's going to look like rain happened. And then now like there's some glowing sunshine on it. It's like sunshine glowing on it. Blackbirds aren't really black. Let's see if this works. I think it does. Oh, that's pretty. I should be doing both colors at the same time. That's what I should be doing. All right, we're going to get some blue in here. This is something else. So I'm just dry brushing it. Maybe smear some of it around. Now you might think I'm crazy, and you wouldn't be wrong, but at the end of the day, who else is going to do this? Tell me. See, now you can see all this detail. Look at all this detail on these birds now. Look at that. That's why I've gone through the struggles, so we can have little victories. This is one of the greatest days of my life. Yep, I just did that. I have a whole handful of these tiny little gems that I'm going to just now place along these roses. Let's give these birds some eyeballs. I'm going to go in on this other side here. Here we go. Oh, look at that. Did you see that snow globe moved? It moved inside of there. Look at that little bird. I would put sparkles on you too if I could get in there, little bird. I would. But I understand being trapped inside of an imaginary bubble, singing and screaming and screaming and singing, just trying to get out. Can you see its eyeball? I'm going to do what any sane person would do, and I'm going to pull on a tried and true staple in the world of beautiment. That's right. You guessed it. We're talking about AstroTurf. AstroTurf could make even the dustiest parking lot look like an oasis. I'm going to put this right here on this AstroTurf. Here we go. Oh, look at that. It is just perfect in there. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm just going to squeeze a bunch of this glue onto here. Oh, look at that. I can turn it on its own accord. Now, this just has a beautiful place to sit. Oh, and you can position it wherever you like. And it's just soft. It's soft. I'm just going to try and do this right. I can see it. I can see it in my vision. Having a sharp pair of scissors helps. Let's see how this lines up. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That is just, that's a thing. Look at that thing. You gotta roll with the punches. If you hadn't noticed, people, the rings came off a while ago. Where's the beginning? Where's the end? Stay, 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 stay. Remember this rock? Well, I would never forget it. We are gonna do something special to this rock right now. Get out of the way there, you sleepy Sally. We're going to make this rock gold. Give me a gold nugget that these birds are flying down out of the sky to try and get from this little bird. See how this story is unfolding? We're going to apply our gold leaf to this in just moments. Let's see how we do. You can always put more sticky on there, but it's always better when it works the first time. Please be sticky, please be sticky, please be sticky. I swear to God, I'm a professional. Things are really starting to come together. Our gold is staying on sometimes. You might be saying to yourself, or even out loud, Patsy, what on earth could you still possibly do to this inanimate object? Well, let me tell you something. Crafting is like a marathon, and you have to go until the very end. How am I going to do that? Foliage. Foliage is necessary in anything that you want to make look like nature. I got it. We have a few different kinds of foliage, and we're just going to use them as we see fit. Get some pieces in the front here. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it looks like it's just growing out of this place, like nature. All I really got to do now is glue these on. And we're going to deal with a little issue I'm sure that all of you have been thinking about, and I have too. Let's talk about time. I, Patsy MacDonald, take safety very seriously. That's why I put my glasses on. All right, here we are. We are just going to pry the back of time off of this. I'm going to put these somewhere safe, somewhere where they'll never get shaken again. It was easier than I thought it was going to be to dismantle time. When I think of violently shaking things, I think of Shake Well, the greatest rock and roll band in the entire universe. That's why today we are going to replace this timepiece with this photograph of Shake Well. Look at us just in there to be the caretakers of rock and roll as we know it. Then I cannot wait to give this to someone that I love, to see their range of emotions wash over them as they try to comprehend exactly what it is that they're looking at. And what it is a symbol of my love and my dedication to my crafting. And remember, anytime that you need a little bit of backup, Shake Well is here for you. You can just pick it up and shake. Well, see you next time.
That was truly a thing of beauty.
Yes, crafting with Patsy.
I really want to see the one where she staples the peeps onto a tie. I could use some new fashion statements.
Perhaps that may happen.
Does she have a site where you can actually get her stuff? It'd be great if she had an Etsy site where you could actually get one of her ties with chicks stapled to it.
Well, we should look into that.
Should. I do have questions for you, though. And I have one here. This is anonymous, but it's a $23 anonymous question.
All right.
And it is, please, in your view, what would be the most fitting funeral rite to be held for King Kong once Beauty had indeed killed the beast? No expense may be considered too extravagant in this royal ceremony. I thank you. Oh, and the anonymous, it's not anonymous, it's Onan. It's Reverend Onan Canabite. So I will pass that question along to you, Dr. Hal.
And the question was, what would be the appropriate funeral rite for King Kong after his fall from the Empire State Building, since I assume we're not speaking of the 1976 King Kong?
Precisely true.
Yes. Well, of course.
And no expense.
What was that?
No expense.
That's true. Well, why would one wish to scrimp on such an occasion, on such an unusual event, which only happened at one particular time? It has been recapitulated a couple of times, but one must assume the actual fall occurred once. And oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen. Then you and I and all of us fell down. And although Denham said that Beauty killed the beast, Beauty only ameliorated some of the beast's problems, although it did lead the beast into the clutches of Carl Denham and his associates. But the canny master showman, already perhaps thinking of the massive number of lawsuits which were about to come his way, as seen in the movie's sequel, Son of Kong, there used a rhetorical trick to shift the blame to the fascination that Anne Darrow, his movie star, held for the gigantic simian of Kong. Well, the large body of the enormous ape lying at the foot of the newly completed Empire State Building, though a magnet for tourists, would be an impediment to traffic. and also for the resumption of life after this unusual incident. So it would be necessary to remove the body itself. And then the body, having great interest to natural history, should probably go to some place where it could be measured and catalogued, and where even the skill of the taxidermist could be brought into play. Surely the skeleton itself should be withdrawn, and then perhaps in the newly donated Carl Denham wing of the American Museum of Natural History be set up and placed on permanent display for pilgrims and tourists to see. This is, in my view, the best possible tribute. And I have always thought that the museums of natural history are not unlike temples, where one sees ancient skeletons and fossil relics and feels a certain humility in the face of the unthinkable extent of deep time. As a child in the American Museum, I always looked up into the dimness, marveling at the toothy head of the Brontosaurus looming down from above. Of course, the head of the Brontosaurus was not accurate, as we now know. It was based upon the head of a related species, the Camarasaurus, or chamber head, when the actual head of Brontosaurus excelsus and other Brontosaurus is more equine, lengthy, with a group of teeth at the forefront of the head. Still, seeing those Camarasaurid teeth glimmering in the gloom gave me the opportunity to think and dream about lost ages which can never be recovered except in imaginative exercises and scientific investigation. So, in my view, the Natural History Museum is a temple of nature, and nature itself is a temple. Thus, by paying tribute to the fallen King Kong, we are, in a sense, in that temple, and are making the appropriate observation. And at a further remove, we make that observation to what nature has bequeathed us, the imagination and the exercise of it, which brought the story of King Kong to us.
Very good, Dr. Happ. I have a question here. This is a $30 question.
Oh, very good.
And all questions are valuable. It's just some questions they have that certain weight to them.
Well, if you want to pay $30 to get your answer, it's attendant upon us to give you an answer that is worth something. Let's see if we can do that.
Perfect. This is from an old friend of the show, Mob Me Addy. And,
oh, yes, he
and
from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C.
Not far away from me. The question is, what would a good plant to start with if someone wanted to bioengineer it into a triffid? Bioengineer it into a triffid. What would be a good plant to start?
Good question. The triffids, as described by John Wyndham in the famous book The Day of the Triffids, and is seen in the British movie made from that book, actually seemed to come from alien spores or seeds, and so their genetic makeup is unknown. But they had other abilities. They were able to uproot themselves and move. They were also able to sting and kill the prey on which they survived. Their root systems used the nutrients from a decaying body. This was made easier when it so happened that the meteor strike, which perhaps brought the triffids to Earth, happened to blind most of the people who were looking up into the sky to view them. But what earthly plants are like that? Even the pitcher plant and the Venus flytrap don't have the ability to move. The reason is that plant energy is not like animal energy, and the ability to move quickly enough for an animal or a human to appreciate it is just not present. So one would actually have to go beyond the plant designation and create a genetic hybrid with certain animal features. Of course, the Triffid is able to lash out with its sting, but this is assumed to be a coiled up thing which is only operational one time when it strikes. Why we need those things, I leave it to somebody else to speculate. But we would have to make a genetic splice across phyla, not just gene and species. So it would require a complicated system, which perhaps we do not have today. Fortunately, we do not have the matrix of the Triffid itself, which would be important to begin the procedure. It's interesting to know that someone would like to bring the Triffids into existence. What did you say that questioner paid?
That was a $30 question, Dr. Hal.
$30 is amazing. All right, this is from William Shakespeare. Blow, blow, thou winter wind, thou art not so unkind as man's ingratitude. Thy tooth is not so keen, because thou art not seen, although thy breath be rude. Then, hey-ho, sing hey-ho unto the green holly. Most friendship is feigning, most loving mere folly. Then, hey-ho, the holly, this life is most jolly. Freeze, freeze, thou bitter sky, thou canst not bite so nigh as benefits forgot. Although the waters warp, thy sting is not so sharp as friend remembered not. Then, hey-ho, sing hey-ho unto the green holly. Most friendship is feigning, most loving mere folly. Then, hey-ho, the holly, this life is most jolly. Thank you.
Beautiful, Dr. Hal. Well, Dr. Hal, let's take this opportunity to let our question queue grow a little bit more. Audience?
Yes, don't be inhibited. Send in any old thing. Ask me about something you read on the back of a cereal box. It doesn't matter. The question is, we require the raw material at our forge to create the final construction of our answers.
Well said. So, audience, get those questions in. We're looking for your questions. But we have our first monster movie moment of the evening. So
Monster movie moment. Oh, good.
Moving smartly forward, here we go.
In our monster movie moment, materialized thought beings have our protagonists surrounded and wish them extreme ill and malevolence. Most illuminating, is it not?
That's such a cool movie.
Well, you know, there's an earlier scene that we haven't used where the initial stage of the siege is happening, and you see them come down the chimney and perform other tricks. Perhaps at some time we'll show that. Incidentally, the movie Fiend Without a Face is part of the Criterion Collection, which means that among cineasts it is considered to have some value, despite its grotesque and to some nature. Well, how's that question queue coming along?
Well, I actually, St. Joyce just handed me a question from the audience, and this is from Reverend Adorno, and it is: if tricks are for kids, then what kind of cereal is for adults?
Well, perhaps the kids that are mentioned are simply the juvenile form of the adult. That is to say, the child is father of the man, and what a child may enjoy, so may an adult. The main purpose of that campaign, as I've said on other occasions, was to point out that this product of General Mills was not for rabbits, but for kids. You see, they felt it was necessary to make this distinction because General Mills had specialized in creating pet food, animal food, for rabbits and guinea pigs, among other things. This cereal, Trix, was definitely not for them, although, of course, the guinea pigs and rabbits would enjoy it. They are able to taste sugar. Why, I once had a hamster which, when you gave it cereal or chocolate drops or something, would fill the cheek pouches in its little head, bulging out with these delicious delicacies, and then its eyes would roll up and close in the pure bliss of assimilation. Nonetheless, the rabbit was always defeated by the nasty little kids in these commercials until the company got tired of it, and they got tired of the kids complaining that it was unfair to the rabbit, and so they allowed the rabbit in the later commercials to get some of the tricks and even to eat them before the snotty kids seized the package and took it away from the rabbit. But at least there was a partial victory. As for adults eating cereal, this goes on all the time. In fact, an entire generation stands around, they often eat standing, slurping these cereals with milk poured on them. This is not really such a healthful thing as we've always been led to believe, but it has become a part of breakfast and perhaps a part of the tranquility which one achieves with a certain domesticity. In one's home, eating cereal is perhaps a link to childhood, to the kid inside us all. And we do know that there are adults who have never given up this and many other juvenile practices.
I have a question here, and it's more informational, Hal, but I'm kind of wondering myself. This is a $5 question from Reverend Not So, and I see an astronomical object in the background of your room. What is it?
An astronomical object, like a star or a planet or an asteroid, a bolidae? Oh, an object for astronomy.
Yes.
He's referring to the armillary sphere back there, which some people have called an astrolabe. Actually, you might call it an astrolabe, but in this case, the armillary sphere is a device which creates in miniature a representation of the time and astronomical conditions that the seeker wishes to commemorate. The arrow or septentrion points to the true north, and the globe in the middle represents the Earth, the terraqueous globe on which we all live. Now, of course, the bands have to do with various meridians, and the globe itself is turnable. It all boils down to an adjustment being possible to make what is represented in the instrument the absolute parallel, symbolically, of the place and time that one is in. If one is interested in magical spells or things like that, it's always important, if you go in for that sort of thing, to recognize and make part of your effort the time and place. This is often done by a sorcerer or his adept in casting a horoscope. If you're familiar with the way a horoscope looks on a piece of paper, to an astrologer, it too is a representation of a place and time. The line going across it representing the horizon, and the various elements of it referring to the time and place. In this case, the time and place of one's birth, where one starts out. I have several armillaries, and I was thinking of trading this one in for a different model, but it is of use in creating this model of the time and creating the thought about it, which may ground one in a certain temporal and physical tranquility.
Dr. Hal, I have one more question for this question.
That's very good. By the way, if there's ever anything you would want to add to what I say, please don't be inhibited about it. What is this newest question?
The newest question, Dr. Penny just dropped one in, and I'm gonna read you a Dr. Penny question. Dr.
Very
Penny is
good.
an old friend of the show, and we're always happy to see her in the audience. It is
That's
for
right.
$22.
Wow, yes, well, we're happy for that, all right.
And does Bob dream, and what are his dreams?
Of course, Bob has to dream because all humans dream. Dreaming is necessary. Dreaming occurs during sleep, and dreaming is the way the complex mind sorts out things which are important. The dreams show this in a symbolic form. And of course, you're not even going to remember any of it unless you wake up during it or immediately afterward. Even so, it will fly away. But a curious thing may happen where in your waking life, something reminds you of something that happened in a dream you had earlier. Then you remember the dream. Well, most people's dreams have to do with anxieties and unfulfilled aspirations. I think it is safe to say that. And they work out for the dreamer one's attitude toward it and essentially prepare that being for how to deal with it in the future. And the subconscious mind has great ability to do this. But what about J.R. Bob Dobbs? He is the world's most slackful man, and thus his anxieties are minimal, and his concern for the future negligible. He is where he prefers to be, and is always satisfied with that, nor is he concerned for what the morrow may bring. In this way, he is like the birds of the air and the fishes of the sea, or the lilies mentioned by Jesus Christ. These things toil not, neither do they spin. They exist from day to day, and so the implication is, should you, as Bob does. But even Bob, I'm going to add, may encounter a temporary frustration of some kind. These things tend to bounce off the epopt of the Church of the Subgenius as water from a duck's back, but they might be reflected in some dream. Also, one so well-versed in subgenius consciousness and slack might be thought to have an effective dream, where you realize that you are in a dream and dreaming, and also realize, though this is far less common, that you have the power to take it and change it. Thus, the landscape of the dream and the people in it can be made to conform to your preferences and will. Perhaps this is what Bob is doing behind his grin as he puffs meditatively on his pipe.
Well, Dr. Hal, we have our musical interlude coming up now, and it's a sweet, gentle musical interlude this month. I hope everyone enjoys it. It's uncharacteristically gentle and peaceful. So, I'd like everybody just to settle back and close your eyes for this next segment. And
here it comes.
We do have more room in the queue, ladies and gentlemen, so please do not hesitate to get your questions into the good doctor. And here comes our soothing musical interlude.
That was The Alcoholic, performed by Fatt Haxx, our musical selection.
It just calmed the cockles of my soul.
Yes, that's the way one should feel it, definitely.
That's how one's soul should get cockled.
Well, I consumed a number of alcoholic potations last night when I went to a Robin Coomer concert.
How was the show?
Oh, it was superb. It was great.
She's fantastic.
At the Hotel Utah in San Francisco. Yes, it was fantastic. She sang some of the songs which she's featured here on the Ask Dr. Hal show in the past.
It will be worth to see. Hopefully, when I finally get out there, I maybe she will be performing somewhere. I'll be able to catch her live.
That would be a wonderful convergence. I hope that it does occur.
That would be terrific. But I have more questions in the queue. So I have one that came in via chat, and this is from Fly Trap Actual. And it is, I never thought the comic strip Kathy was very funny until I realized there were secret messages encoded into every other third panel. But the messages were incomplete. Does Dr. Hal know which other comic matches Kathy and completes the message?
Well, this is interesting because you seem to think that the comic strip Kathy was communicating or attempting to communicate with other comics. And does that strip still exist? Kathy Guyswhite, the author, drew a number of them, and it was remarked on by many people at the time. Even Robert Crumb drew a satirical version of it. But I'm not sure that it's in syndication now. Perhaps somebody can tell me. But what it seemed to provide in the third panel and in the panels leading up to it was a certain anxiety about propriety, about what is appropriate, about what should be done in the case of a woman who is unsure. And the last panel would resolve it in some inconclusive way, but a way which momentarily put a cap on the anxious element. Now, what other comics are like that? I would say too few, because most of the newspaper comics which still remain today are essentially one-shot gag strips which come to some mildly amusing conclusion. Others may have some continuity to future strips, but nothing compared to the great age of the newspaper comic strip, which I was fortunately able to see during my lifetime, when they had so many large color comics and interesting continuities. Al Capp believed if he put his characters in peril, people would read the comic. But what applies to comic strips also applies to literature and plays and screenwriting, in that you have to know what the characters want. Then you will be interested in following their story and seeing how close they achieve their desire. In the case of Kathy, this is always a tease, but it is never really resolved. The resolution in the fourth panel, as I have said, is only a temporary humorous check to the direction of the story, which is anxiety about physical appearance, about the appropriate way to behave, and all sorts of other things. The only real way to resolve these things is not by turning them over in the mind, although that is very helpful, but in going out and doing things. And then you will have solid data that you can use to craft your praxis and your life path. If Kathy succeeded in doing that, it did indeed perform a valuable service. And in the best comics, there is always more than meets the eye. I say this as one who is a cartoonist himself.
Now I have a question here from Dr. Billy, another old friend of the show.
Yes, we like him.
And let me see, he sent this to me via email, and the contribution came in via Ko-fi, and this is a $15 question.
Oh, really?
And Dr. Hal, I like to listen to the Hour of Slack via my phone when cutting the grass. The problem is, every couple of minutes, it just stops. Necessitating I restart it. My question is this Bob telling me not to listen to the Hour of Slack, or is he telling me to stop cutting the grass?
Well, Bob may not sustain an interest in whether you cut the grass or listen to the hour of slack. Bob's interest is only that those things exist as a possible avenue of achieving slack. But why it should stop repeatedly, I don't know. Perhaps it's something in your system. Are you able to restart these programs? They come from Ivan Stang, and they often include excerpts of me and my friends. We conceive it all as a kind of a stream, an ongoing project, which we have elsewhere called the Nameless Mission. All these radio shows and rants ultimately flow in the same channel. I'm sure Bob would not object to your listening to it as you mow the grass. On the other hand, Bob might be less interested in you running over a rock or something while you were distracted by listening to the hour of slack, and perhaps having it pelt you or strike you, as the lawnmower blade so often unkindly does when it encounters an obstacle. Of course, your slack can also depend upon the time that you spend devoted to slackful rewards and devoted to getting the daily activities over and done with. That in itself is a producer of slack of the kind. So, I assume Bob is not overly concerned with your reception of the hour of slack. It might be with your instrument, your Walkman, or whatever you're listening to while you're cutting the grass. Surely it has to be something which involves an earbud, so the thunder of the two-stroke engine that powers the lawnmower doesn't overwhelm the sound, its subtleties and niceties. Or perhaps you are building up strength in your arms and upper body by pushing the old-fashioned non-powered lawnmower. In any case, your attempt to derive slack from ordinary daily or weekly experiences is praiseworthy, and we would never try to discourage you from achieving that end.
Dr. Hal, I have a question here from Ramulak, our recently betrothed audience.
Happy Swain.
Old friend in our audience. Dr. Hal, what is the most practical way to utilize my subgenius time control in order to extend my slack for longer than a 24-hour day?
Well, your day will always be 24 hours, no matter how you control your own time span within that period. But as we subgeniuses know, time can appear to travel with excruciating slowness or with an irritatingly vertiginous speed. If only you could control this speed or slowness, you would be well on your way to time control. The subgenius glyph for time control, drawn by Robert Williams, shows a winged pocket watch representing time, transfixed with a dagger representing the will to pin it and control it. I am never at a loss when confronted with a bus stop where I have to wait, or a doctor's office where I have to wait, because I've made sure that internally there are always things I can call upon which entertain me, and I suggest that you do the same thing. Find out those channels wherein your mind most pleasurably flows, and be ready to resort to them when you find that you must spend time on something you did not plan for, but is necessary to achieve a larger and greater objective. What this is up to you, but there must be some fondness of contemplated things, or even mental exercises that you can do, and I wish you the best in your attempt to do it.
I have a $25 question from an anonymous donor.
Why be anonymous? But that's we certainly appreciate the question.
And, when I actually look at it here, let me view the details. Sometimes it tells me in the details, nope, it's simply a code.
If they want to be anonymous, we don't want to violate that. I was just wondering why they don't want their name bruited about on our show. But that's all right.
I want to violate it, Dr. Hal.
Then do so.
I want to violate it and over again. But in this case, there is nothing I can do. It is a Ko-fi supporter for $25, though.
That's very good, elevated and correct.
And the question is very simple: how long will the beatings continue?
The beatings? What beatings? Well, he doesn't say. He doesn't say, so we must assume that we can describe the beatings he's considering.
Generic beatings.
What was that?
They are generic beatings.
Generic beatings, yes. The beatings, for example, the beat of the tom-tom when the jungle shadows fall, the tick-tick talk of the crazy clock as it stands against the wall, like the drip, drip, drip of the faucet, and so forth. All of these percussive sounds are beatings. Of course, how long will a brutal man deal out punches to his unfortunate confreres? No one can say, but there is one constant repetition, one constant beating, which we are all concerned with, and that is the beating of your heart. It will last as long as you do, and when it ends, so will you. You must wish it to continue, and I'm sure that you do. Of course, the heart itself can increase at certain emotional times and go to a plateau of placidity in times of tranquility, and yogis and other mystics are able to alter their heart rate at will. But it has been said you only get so many of these percussive moments, and then you are left without a body and without continuation of this form of life. So let's assume that if these are the beatings you refer to, they last for a long and appropriate time, as I'm sure you would wish that for us. Here is a poem by Ruth Stone. It is called Juveniles. The dragons, the scale-tailed dragons have gone away, and the sea serpents no longer play. Now, in the pages we turn, are tales of the engine that could, the real little stove that will burn. Is there no moral wrath to prick up the child? In this land, function beguiles, and says, now we are all quite good. The wild is tamed. See how the derrick smiles. Come, shake his hand.
Very nice. I can hear the...
Incidentally,
yeah.
If we give an answer that you deem inadequate, please join us in the chat room afterwards, and we can further discuss it, perhaps to your satisfaction. So what is next, Pontius?
Actually, Hal, I will mention there's something that I will bring up in the chat room, and it was that thing of time dilation and all that sort of thing. I saw an article on it recently of how animals perceive time, and it was kind of one of those things that changes your perspective about things. So especially that crocodiles and alligators have it down probably better than we ever will.
Or serpents do, yes.
Yeah, they're actually able to change their time dilation for hunting prey. So, but we'll save that for the after show chat. That sounds like a good after show conversation.
Yes, never neglect the after show chat, because the show does continue there to some degree.
And it's a lot more personal because we're all there. We're all talking to each other, and it's really quite nice. We've had a lot of good times in the after show chats.
Give it a chance.
Yeah, come on in. But anyway, I do have our second monster movie moment, and
very good.
So I'm going to go ahead and play that for us now. Audience, we do still have room in the queue for questions. We're happy to stay here for as long as you like and answer as many questions as you want to ask. So your time is our time, and our time is your time, and all that stuff. So monster movie moment coming up. Friends, guests, and colleagues, the Ask Dr. Hal show is currently seeking open submissions from anyone with a thing they do, for the entertainment of others, that they might wish to submit for consideration for inclusion on a future Ask Dr. Hal show. If you have a talent that you wish to share, consider sending it to us. We seek a wide range of eclectic materials. If your submission meets our criteria for audience satisfaction, we will use it on an upcoming show. We take great pleasure in showcasing performers who have that certain something. Please make arrangements to get pre-recorded video to us by dropping me an email at pressure@gonzotronics.net. Thank you from all of us at the Ask Dr. Hal show.
Ah, yes, there's that cup. You know, the cup is a symbol of good fortune, and such good fortune might be yours. Continue to watch, and you will find out how.
Well, this is how we reward people who send us material that we use on the show, is they have a chance to get one of these mugs.
Just imagine drinking your favorite beverage in one of these Ask Dr. Hal mugs, a marvelous porcelain vessel that your boyfriends will want and your girlfriends will secretly admire, as the comic book ads used to say. This can be yours, so make sure that you keep that in mind as you send us the raw material which we use to create the Ask Dr. Hal show.
And we made sure to have one that was both a left-handed and a right-handed model. So it doesn't matter which hand you hold it with. You are always telling the
prototype
world.
Needed that adjustment, which we have now made.
Now you tell the world, with no matter what hand you hold it, that you are a supporter of the Dr. Hal show, a contributor to the Dr. Hal show.
That's right.
How unique is that? Well, I have more questions, Dr. Hal. This one's a very simple question, and again, it's another Ko-fi supporter. Folks, let us know who you are. We want to announce your name loud and clear to the world. But nonetheless, this is a Ko-fi supporter, and it is for $6. And it's a very simple question, but one that should be fairly interesting to hear. Film or digital? What do you say?
Well, I used to make film, that is to say chemical film. I used to shoot film, and so I'm naturally prejudiced toward it, because you can adjust it, but of course with the digital copy you can also adjust that. Still, there's nothing like the chemical film for the subtlety of color and exposure, and often I would find that I could receive results that I liked by adjusting the film speed. As you probably know, the speed of sound film is 24 frames per second, and the digital world copies that number of exposures to make an accurate simulacrum of the passage of time. But what if you run it faster, run the camera faster? Then you have more exposures per second. Because of this, the light hitting the image is slightly reduced, and then you get a marvelous richness of color, a marvelous balance of light, similar to that found in a Renaissance painting. Oh, it's quite possible that in a digital device you could dial up that result if you were able and knew how to do it. The question is, would you? Because everything in the digital world must be voluntarily asked for and added. There are no byproducts in the sense that there are when shooting traditional film, and thus what Keats called the magic hand of chance has less of an opportunity to operate. It has been said, and we fully endorse the idea, that formal limitations are God's gift to the artist. If there are only certain things that you can expect to result from what you do, then you can concentrate on what is between those parameters and not have to worry about what lies outside them. But whatever my opinions or anyone else's, the digital world is here to stay. One has to incorporate the world of film into the digital domain so that it may survive in a lasting form in this brave new world. But there are those who still shoot chemical film, and some of these are our best filmmakers. So we have not yet achieved the point where everything is a sum of pixels.
Well, we're going to do something here that's never been tried before, at least on this show, and that is to combine two of the questions which have a great deal of synchronicity among them. So but I will leave it to you to judge whether they are a synchronistic question or whether they are two individual questions. But the first,
both. But let's hear it.
Well, the first question, the first part of the question is from Reverend Dr. Les, and is, why does music sound so much better when traveling on the road? And that is for $6. The synchronicity is, there is another question that is rather similar to this, and I will scroll down here. Let me find it. Bear with me just a minute. It was about, yes, this is from our good friend Frater Yang Chanosaurus. And this is a $13 question. Why does junk food, fast food, and gas station sushi taste so much better when you're on a road trip than when you're at home? So you see the synchronicity there.
Yes. Well, there is synchronicity. And to answer both questions, I would say the element that is present, which is not present when you're not on the road, is the view and the speed, the sensation of speed. While you are moving forward and the landscape is attractively changing, other things may be attractive, including one's taste of delicious junk food. There are things which I eat on a road trip which I would never, ever consume just not on a road trip. For example, chili cheese Fritos come to mind. Yes, these things are created as distractions and also as enhancements, turning what one must do into what one delights in doing. Now, I think I'm in the realm of answering these questions, but could you quickly recapitulate whatever difference there is between them?
Yes, Dr. Hal. The Yangchanosaurus deals more with junk food, fast food, gas stations, sushi, and why does it taste so good on the road?
Yes.
The
Yes.
the one that we have from Reverend Dr. Les deals more with why does music sound so much better when traveling on the
Ah.
road?
Well, that's probably also, as I said, because of the speed and because of the condition of one being a participant and yet acted upon, which you only get by riding in a moving vehicle and controlling it. And the music, of course, sounds good because of a phenomenon which filmmakers know as principal co-expressibility, where when you see a visual image and you hear a sound, those two things are fused together because of the way the mind takes in information. Not only is music therefore more appropriate when you're riding in your car, driving near or driving far, but the car itself is a sound chamber, which is for you and you alone, unless you roll down the windows and allow others to hear it. And inside the confines of this metal shell, you hear the music resonate in a way which is not normally available to you. It may suggest pleasant memories of earlier road trips and adventures. At any rate, it is a continuity of its own. When you get in the car and turn on the radio or the music player, you are simply continuing that earlier state where you did it before. As you are, I suppose, when you are eating the offerings in the convenience mart at the gas station. Those items that are on display and for sale are specially crafted to satisfy just that urge, and you may enjoy them. After all, this too is another way of achieving slack.
I have a question here from Reverend Dear Friend from Austin, Texas. And it is, do you think there will ever be a robot billionaire? And will we know?
Well, a robot billionaire? A billionaire who is a robot? Was the billionaire always a robot, or did the billionaire use his billions to become a robot? To become a cyborg? Or to have one's mental information downloaded into a receptive mobile being, harder and more able to withstand the ravages of time than the human corpus, which does have a limited warranty. If anyone does this, it's going to have to be a billionaire, at least at first, or a guest or friend of the billionaire. This is because money talks, as we know, and also because robots tend to be expensive to create and maintain. But as we go forward, creating these and other devices, and they turn out to be easier to create, easier to maintain, the opportunity to prolong one's existence by mechanical means may move down from the highest financial type to lower types. Nonetheless, it will probably never be the recourse of the poorest caste or class. It's important to cultivate what one likes in life and not to think so little about it that the sensory apparatus of a robot can be thought to compete with that which grows in the human body, since the robot's sensory organs and instruments of perception are going to have a manufacturer's limit in them, while the plasticity of the human organism indicates that there is always room for growth and development. To grow is to continue to be born and to live and to come to a point where nothing grows or continues is, despite the persistence of a form of consciousness, a kind of death. Pardon me. Hello? I don't know. You're calling me. Yes? I'm in the middle of my show, so please call me back at another time. Well, good luck with that, and I'll talk to you at another time. All right. Okay, good night. Sorry about that.
Oh, we're live. This is what happens when you're live. Phones still ring and calls come in, and it happens. But
Yes.
Hal, I do have another question here for you. Let me see. Pretty sure I do. Anyway, I thought I did. Oh, yes, of course. I have a $20 question here from Reverend Xenofact.
Well, excellent. Let's have that.
And it is Dr. Hal. The world is filled with things that may drive us to worry. In your wisdom, how does one navigate this worry to do what is necessary?
Well, you can be the victim of an anxiety, and in order not to encounter your worries in the flesh, you can sit at home and do nothing. But this does not really expunge the worry. The best way to deal with challenges is to meet them. And the best way to go through something is to go right through it. This is what we believe here on the Ask Dr. Hal show. But all such beliefs are subject to experimental verification. Try yourself whether you like the avoidance strategy or the militant strategy, and perhaps you will find a place in between these poles, these extremes, which is satisfying to you and which allows you to move farther upon future consideration in either direction to the state of being sessile, sentient and sapient but motionless, or dynamically engaged with the outer world of the universe, which contains among its many phenomena things which are possibly menacing and inimical. So may you be to them, if you can conquer them, and this is up to you. Since your question is $20, let me throw something in here. Lochinvar by Sir Walter Scott. How about that one? You know, I never can remember what I've already done on this show, so if I have, my apologies. But here we go. Oh, young Lochinvar has come out of the west. Through all the wide border his steed was the best, and save his good broadsword he weapon had none. He rode all unarmed, and he rode on alone, so daring in love, and so dauntless in war. There never was knight like the young Lochinvar. He stopped not for brake, and he stopped not for stone. He swam the Esk River, where ford there was none. But ere he alighted at Netherby gate, the bride had consented. The bridegroom came late, for a laggard in love and a dastard in war was to wed the fair Ellen of young Lochinvar. So boldly he entered the Netherby hall among bridesmen and kinsmen and brothers and all. Then spake the bride's father, one hand on his sword, for the poor craven bridegroom said never a word. O come ye in peace here, or come ye in war, or to dance at our bridal, young Laird Lochinvar? I long wooed your daughter, my love you denied. Love swells like the Solway, but ebbs like its tide. And now I am come with this lost love of mine, to lead but one measure, drink one cup of wine. There are maidens in Scotland more lovely by far, that would gladly be bride to the young Lochinvar. The bride kissed the goblet, the knight took it up. He quaffed off the wine, and he threw down the cup. She looked down to blush, and she looked up to sigh, with a smile on her lips and a tear in her eye. He took her soft hand, ere her mother could bar. Now tread we a measure, quoth young Lochinvar. So stately his form, and so lovely her face, that never a hall such a galliard did grace, while her mother did fret, and her father did fume, and the bridegroom stood dangling his bonnet and plume, and the bridemaidens whispered, "'Twere better by far to have matched our fair cousin with young Lochinvar." One touch to her hand and one word in her ear, when they reached the hall door where the charger stood near. So light to the croup the fair lady he swung, so light to the saddle before her he sprung. She is won, we are gone, over bank, bush, and scaur. They'll have fleet steeds that follow, quoth young Lochinvar. There was mounting mid Grahams of the Netherby clan, Fosters, Fenwicks, and Musgraves, they rode and they ran. There was racing and chasing on Cannobie Lee, but the lost bride of Netherby ne'er did they see. So daring in love, and so dauntless in war, did you e'er hear of gallant like young Lochinvar?
Wonderful, Hal.
Where are we now?
Well, I just shook the cue, and you know what? There's nothing left. Let me do it one more time.
Out?
I'm going
and no monster movie moments, no further things to display. Maybe we've come to the end of our program.
I believe we have. I think the only thing we have left is you have a final recitation for us.
It is so.
And so if you are ready, I will go ahead and push the button and make everything happen.
Very good. Well, we thank everyone who has submitted a question to us and hope that we've managed to be entertaining with our answers. And please join us in the chat room afterwards.
And everybody out there who is out there formulating their question, hold on to it for August. We will see you back here on August the 14th. We'll be back tan, rested, and ready.
But, of course, if you go to the real X Day, you may see me and Pastor Pressure there. Who knows? We might even do some version of this show there. Nothing is certain at this point.
Life is surfing the luck plane. And, well, on that note, Hal, if you're ready for the final recitation, I'm going to go ahead and get everything set up.
Thank you. Kubla Khan. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Auf, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers were girdled round, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree, and here were forests, ancient as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. But oh, that deep romantic chasm that slanted down the green hill athwart a cedarn cover, a savage place, as holy and enchanted as ere beneath a waning moon was haunted by woman wailing for her demon lover. and from this chasm in ceaseless turmoil seething, as if this earth in fast, thick pants were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced. Amidst whose swift, half-intermitted bursts huge fragments vaulted, like resounding hail, or chaffy grain, beneath the thresher's flail. And mid these dancing rocks at once and ever it flung up momently the sacred river. 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion through wood and dale the sacred river ran, then reached the caverns, measureless to man, and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean. And midst this tumult Kubla heard from far ancestral voices prophesying war. The shadow of the dome of pleasure floated midway on the waves, where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. A damsel with a dulcimer in a vision once I saw. It was an Abyssinian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abora. Could I revive within me her symphony and song, then to such a deep delight 'twould win me, that with music loud and long I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honeydew has fed, and drunk the milk of paradise. Coloring.